Hi there, it's Jason Blackman here and welcome to my latest edition of Taxfiler Tips and Tricks, and I'm just going to share with you 5 quick tips regarding Taxfiler and limited companies today. So nothing to do with sole traders today, we're basically on limited companies. As you can see, I've got my Fred Blogs Limited company here and I'm in my trial balance tab. You'll see all the figures are entered for the accounts. So the first tip I'm going to talk about is the layout of the debit and credit columns. Now as you will see, we've just got one column here for our current year and one column for comparative. Now comparative's blank, but that's largely irrelevant for what I'm about to tell you. What I am about to tell you is in the trial balance for Taxfiler, you'll notice it says enter credits as negative amounts and enter debits as positive amounts. So as you can see, any credit figures we've got brackets round because they're minus figures, and any debit figures haven't got brackets round because they're positive debits. Now this can be confusing to some, and I often get asked which figures do I enter brackets around, which are minus figures, but you can make it slightly easier on yourself on Taxfiler if you're not familiar with that. You'll notice here there's a little button that's called layout, and at the moment it says single column per year, but if I click on that we do get the option of debit and credit columns. So if I click on that, you'll then see we get 2 columns for each year. So that's really handy. If you're struggling on where to put your minuses, then in this example you've got debit columns and credit columns, 2 separate columns, so it makes it slightly easier if you struggle with your minus and your brackets to enter the figures into the trial balance. So that's just a very quick tip. Now the second tip, what I'm going to do is just move back to single column per year, makes it slightly clearer to explain what I'm about to tell you. The second tip is about share capital. Now this is kind of stating the obvious really, but I've seen so many sets of limited company accounts that don't include share capital, and I find it quite surprising. I've even seen it from some of the big firms. I've seen a set of limited company accounts and the share capital is missing completely. And it's really important you enter the share capital into your limited company accounts, and I'm just going to scroll down the screen to show you where to enter it. Now on Taxfiler you'll notice that the blue shaded areas are for profit and loss items, and if I scroll down we'll move to the red shaded area which is balance sheet items. Now we're going to move down the screen until we get to the share capital section, which I'm just about to get to. There we go. And obviously in this case the share capital is 1, but even though it is 1 it's still a vital area to enter and it must be entered into your trial balance. But as I say, I've seen many examples where it's not included in the accounts. So just always remember when you're preparing your limited company trial balance, always to enter your share capital in. Now we're going to stay down the bottom half of the balance sheet here for my third tip, which is dividends. I often get asked, Jason, where do we enter dividends into Taxfiler? I think a lot of people are expecting to see them in the blue area in the P&L section, but they're not. They're right at the very bottom of the balance sheet here. We've got equity dividends. So that's just a really quick tip. As I say, a question I often get asked, where do we enter dividends into Taxfiler? The answer is right at the very bottom of the balance sheet into that box there. So, tip number 4 and number 5 are kind of related. They're to do with HMRC and Companies House. So what I'm going to do is move up to settings, and I'm going to click on that. And what I'm going to look at now is online filing passwords. So I'm going to click on that tab here. Now you notice we've got 2 green buttons here. We've got add HMRC credentials and we've got add Companies House credentials. Now the last 2 tips are to do with these 2 buttons here. Now Companies House credentials, when you're filing limited company accounts directly to Companies House through Taxfiler, you must have a presenter ID. It actually says that here, you must add details of your presenter ID before you can submit accounts to Companies House. So it's not like the web filing screen in the Companies House software where you can file it without a presenter ID. You do need to apply for a presenter ID before you can file accounts to Companies House through Taxfiler. Now I realise that each company has their own authentication code, and a lot of people do get confused that they think presenter ID and authentication code are the same. They're not. Authentication code is completely different and separate for every single company. Presenter ID will be assigned to you as an agent, and you will need to use that presenter ID in this section here. I'm going to click on it here. Presenter ID and presenter authentication code need to be entered in here before you can submit accounts to Companies House through the software. As I say, please don't get confused. Presenter authentication code and the individual company authentication code for your client are 2 totally separate things. And the last tip is HMRC. Now it's just a very, very quick tip. I'm just going to click into add HMRC credentials here. And it's also vitally important you enter your user ID and password for the government gateway to file CT600 corporation tax returns through Taxfiler. And it's also very important you have the right boxes ticked here. Now some agents have separate identification for self-assessment and corporation tax. So if your user ID and password just relates to corporation tax, then you need to untick the self-assessment button. And I guess this section is pretty obvious. I think the presenter ID is less obvious, but the HMRC credentials are pretty obvious. You need to enter them to file CT600s, but it's just to sort of show you where to enter them into the software. So that's that. That's my few quick tips for Taxfiler today. Now, if you've enjoyed this video and if you'd like to find out how to prepare the whole of your limited company accounts through Taxfiler, I'm selling a course. It's for £97 and it shows you the entire process right from starting from scratch through to filing limited company accounts and corporation tax returns through Taxfiler. It's very much a work at your own pace course. It's completely video based. You can pause it whenever you need to. You can work along with me as I show you, but it's very, very much a detailed course on the whole process of preparing and filing limited company accounts and corporation tax returns through Taxfiler. Now, if you also order it through the link that I've shown below, it will be just below this video. You'll be able to click the link and order this course, and when you've ordered it I will also send you as a bit of a freebie a guide I've got, an 11-page PDF guide called Allowable Business Expenses for Limited Companies. So it's a bit of a guide to help you as you're preparing your limited company accounts, what can and can't be claimed, and there's lots and lots of tips and tricks there on what you can and can't claim for limited companies, and I will send you that. I will email you that completely free of charge when you purchase my course for £97. So as I say, all you need to do is click the link underneath this video to purchase the course. Once you've purchased it, I'll send you the free guide. I hope you find the course useful, and I hope you found this video useful, and I'll speak to you again soon.